I think a lot about how much we're being watched, whether it's in public or in private through our own devices. We are nearly constantly under surveillance, usually by people trying to sell us things. But being at home so much in quarantine in 2020, I really realized how much we are being surveyed by people who want to sell us stuff. It's a lot, a whole lot. In my song, Life is So Strange in America, the second verse says, "They only value life in monetary terms. We all become replaceable." In the next line, I got when I saw a man go on TV from the Trump administration, and he said, "Our human capital stock is ready to get back to work."
Human capital stock is ready to get back to work.
They called us livestock. That's how they look at people. And I think when we let economics get bigger than our humanity, or anything for that matter, we really do ourselves a disservice. On my song Alexa, I knew I wanted very rich vocals. So what I did is I basically took a bunch of different tracks, just kind of improvised over and over, and just kind of kept the stuff I like. So there's a lot of ad-libbing, there's a lot of improvisation, and a lot of harmonizing. And I really wanted to get a very full, textured vocal. I added a lot of reverb, and I think really got it sounding sexy. Last year, I went to the beach a whole lot, because it was a pretty safe place. I got this footage out at Jacksonville Beach, and I slowed it down, and oh yeah, pack the court, please, Joe. Thanks. I also made a t-shirt that says this, too. Policing in America is crazy. Policing in America in 2020 was possibly the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I do believe that a lot of people saw policing through a different lens in that year. When we saw things like what happened to George Floyd, we saw where protesters were picked up by police officers without any identification into unmarked cars and detained. And I really hope that more people start listening to those that have said that not everybody is treated the same by police, and that's something that has to be fixed. During the pandemic, the first time I came out where I actually interacted with people was the racial justice protest after George Floyd's murder. And I remember being there. I had never been somewhere where so many people all agree on the same things in the same place. And there was a clarity to that. And when I wrote this song, it seemed so simple. There's really only 3 lines to it. I got that feeling.
I got that feeling.
So a while back, I came up with this bass line. And I started building some stuff around it. And it really kind of reminded me of that song, Somebody's Watching Me, and kind of had like a Thriller vibe, but more in like a mid-tempo feel. And this was during the pandemic when I was having a lot of panic attacks and anxiety, and I started to feel like everybody was mad at me, and there were times where I couldn't tell if that was real or not. It wasn't, but I felt like it. I wrote this song about it. I've known Drazah backwards for a real long time. We're both old as hell. We're millennials. And when we were growing up, this is how music sounded. And we wanted to make a song like this. There were a lot of like warning raps that were on TV when we were kids. I really wanted to reproduce that vibe. At the beginning of the pandemic, I remember seeing these videos online of people getting asked to put on a mask and they just freak out. And so I thought about that, and it made me wonder, what's wrong with people? How could people be so selfish? It was almost cartoonish, so I decided to make a cartoon for this video. I collaborated with an awesome animator, AFX, and we created something cool. The first computer I ever remember using had a Windows 3.1 operating system. Throughout the 90s, they upgraded the interface to look like this, and everybody got on the internet, but they called it the World Wide Web. I thought that was a really cool name, so I did these dances, and I wore this shirt I made and danced on the internet. I wanted to create something just positive, feel good, but honest. One that looks at how to become a better person and just dealing with the things that do cripple us. Things like imposter syndrome, things like anxiety, depression, and that if we really want to be the best people that we are meant to be, we have to take care of ourselves. And that's really what I wanted Wings to be about. I wrote, "Is this the happiest I'll ever be?" In the summer of 2020. More and more people dying every day. Case numbers were rising through the roof. Law enforcement fired on civilians so that Trump could have a photo shoot. It really felt like the whole world was falling apart. I had a really good day that day with my wife and my son just in the house. I was happy. And it made me wonder if I would ever be happy again, or was that the happiest I was going to be? If things kept getting worse, more people dying, fascists take over the government, scary, we'd be in a real bad place. But I wanted to save that moment and remember I could still find just a little bit of happiness, just a ray of hope. I saw this TikTok last year that perfectly described the whole COVID situation.
You know, this COVID situation kind of reminds me like when a kid diarrheas in a pool at Lifetime Fitness.
So I had to get that guy on my album. His name's Stanky Jesus, and he's pretty funny. Thanks, man. One of the problems creatively I needed to solve that the pandemic brought about was how to collaborate with people without being able to physically be with them. So I decided to really embrace video as a medium. And I had people, friends, family members, and I asked them to go out into the world, kind of in their everyday lives, and just get video of what was going on, how people were adapting. My wife's cousin Jeff lives in Washington, D.C., and he shot some just really interesting stuff, just kind of seeing people going about, and to me, being able to see people still moving on with their lives while adapting was just very inspiring. So a few years ago, there was this Matt and Kim music video where they had a camera and they just swung it around their heads and slowed down the footage. That's exactly what I did for What Keeps You Awake, one of the songs on my album. I took my Sony RX0 and put it in between a coat hanger that had strings and just swung it around my head. And this is the result. Man, the people in 2020 were absolute nuts. One time, I saw this lady campaigning, waving a Trump flag right in front of a crematorium where they cremate dead people. I thought it was pretty symbolic because of how many people were dying from COVID. Sometimes, when I'm creating a song, I will be amazed at the sounds that my body can create. The sound I love the most was in this song. This is my favorite sound that has ever exited my body. I like instrumental music, and I don't think people put enough saxophone in music these days. So I wanted to be sure to have a saxophone-heavy track. Gotta love the sax. I am fortunate to have a family full of creative people. On my last album, I was lucky enough to have my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, both of my parents, my son's great-grandmother, and I was able to have a lot of people I love and care about on that album. For this album, I asked my brother-in-law, Steve Kim, to write a poem for me, and he was gracious enough to write this poem and to record a video of himself reciting it. Family is very important. This is my light suit. I made it by taking an LED string strip and wrapping it around my body, and then I put on this white suit. I designed it and printed it myself, created all the designs. I call it Light Flamingo. Keep Keeping On is the last song on Y2K20. So for the visual, I wanted to burn the Y2K20 box that previously showed up in the intro of the album. So I soaked it with gasoline and lit it on fire. It was somewhat cathartic.